My fiancé left me for the neighbor's daughter, but his father secretly rewrote his will, leaving everything to me. My fiancé abandoned me for the neighbor's daughter, but his father secretly modified his will due to his disgust with his son's behavior. I, a 28-year-old female, can't believe I'm writing this. I've been gazing at my laptop for hours, trying to make sense of what happened. I met 30-year-old Henry at a tech company 5 years ago. I had recently moved to Boston for a job after finishing college in Seattle. Henry worked in product development, while I was in marketing. He was charming, successful, and appeared great. We started as pals. Henry would converse at my work during coffee breaks, and we finally had lunch together. 6 months later, he asked me out on a date. I was apprehensive about office connections, but he made them seem natural. We dated for 3 years before becoming engaged. I became close to his parents, George, 58, and Helen, 55, who treated me like a daughter. They had no other children, and Helen was overjoyed to gain a daughter. Their beautiful, historic home, passed down through generations, became the setting for our Sunday family dinners. During one of these dinners, Henry proposed with his grandmother's ring, and Helen presented me with a family necklace as a formal welcome. The wedding planning process was flawless. Henry's parents insisted on contributing, despite the fact that my family was already covering costs. Helen assisted with everything, from dress fittings to decor, and bonded with my mother. Everything felt wonderful. In the week leading up to the wedding, Henry appeared excited. We arranged a honeymoon to Europe, which his parents generously offered us. At the rehearsal dinner, Henry delivered a moving speech about our future. Helen hugged me, proud of having me as her daughter-in-law. George appeared emotional, despite his reserved demeanor. On the wedding day, as I was getting ready, Henry's best man arrived, visibly apprehensive. He handed me a message from Henry stating he couldn't do it and wanted time to think things through. I called Henry, but his phone was turned off. His best man admitted that Henry had left early in the morning. The aftermath was chaotic. My parents rushed to cancel everything. Henry's parents were stunned. Helen attempted to reach him, but George looked glum, almost unsurprised. I sat in my wedding dress for hours, devastated. The guests were sent home, and all we had prepared went to waste. My parents wasted thousands in non-refundable deposits. 2 days later, when I was still in bed, a friend sent me an Instagram screenshot. Henry had shared a photo with 26-year-old Megan, a neighbor's daughter who resided 3 homes down from his parents. They were obviously together, looking happy and comfortable in what appeared to be her residence. Megan had always been there at family functions because she lived so near to Henry's parents. The caption said, "Sometimes the right path isn't the easy one." I never noticed that she frequently joined us for Sunday dinners with her parents. She was constantly nice, inquiring about the wedding plans, and even offering to assist with the arrangements. Now I understand why she was so interested in the details. I found out from common friends that Henry and Megan had been seeing each other behind my back for months. They apparently became close after she joined the local tennis club where Henry played. They had been practicing early in the morning before going to work. What hurts more than Henry's betrayal is his parents' reaction. Instead of being furious with him, they embraced his new relationship. Helen called me a week after the wedding catastrophe, not to apologize or check on me, but to explain why I shouldn't be upset with Henry's decision. She claimed Megan was a better match for Henry because her family had connections in the computer world. Megan's father had a thriving software company, and Henry was certain to receive a sizable share of the family business one day. Helen had the nerve to imply that while they liked me, they needed to consider Henry's future, and Megan could provide him with better prospects. She noted that sometimes parents must support their children's decisions, even if they appear harsh to others. The mother who had cried with excitement when I announced my engagement and helped me arrange every detail of my wedding was suddenly acting as if I were simply a stepping stone on her son's journey to prosperity. Then came an unexpected twist. Henry's father's attorney phoned me 2 weeks after the wedding that wasn't. George updated his will 2 months before the wedding. The lawyer indicated that George saw through Henry's actions and was repulsed by them. He gave me documents demonstrating that George had left everything, the family business, properties, and investments, to me rather than Henry. This was done in secret, without anyone's knowledge, including Helen. When I questioned the lawyer why George would do this, he explained that George had been seeing Henry's behavior shift over the previous year. He hired a private investigator to investigate some of his suspicions. The lawyer brought me a letter George had written to explain everything. George had learned Henry's tendency of exploiting others to his advantage and was ashamed of the man his son had become. The letter stated that he observed how sincere and hardworking I was and believed I would be a better steward of the family legacy than his own son. I have not notified anyone about the will yet, not even my parents. Henry and his mother still believe he is going to inherit everything. I'm simply trying to digest everything while watching them enjoy his new relationship with Meghan as if nothing happened. Helen publishes images of them together on Facebook, expressing her joy that her son has discovered his true love. The toughest part is witnessing my almost mother-in-law, who I assumed loved me like a daughter, act as if I never existed. The last 2 weeks have been an absolute disaster. Just when I thought things couldn't get much worse, I discovered new lies and betrayals that made my head spin. Yesterday, I learned that Henry's parents mortgaged their historic family house shortly after our engagement. They took out a large debt because Henry promised to help them with payments after he received his inheritance. Helen was so sure about Henry's future with Meghan's family that they not only mortgaged the house, but also took out additional loans to refurbish it and purchase a vacation home on Cape Cod. Helen had been gloating to my mother about their restoration plans during the wedding preparations, which led me to this discovery. My mother mentioned this to me while we were sorting through wedding gifts that needed to be returned. Curious about how they could afford such expensive upgrades, I inquired. One of George's colleagues informed me about the mortgage predicament, stating that he had cautioned George against it. But it isn't the most devastating part. Isabella, one of my bridesmaids who works at the wedding venue, visited me yesterday. She seemed uneasy and admitted to withholding something from me. She disclosed that Henry's parents had known about his intention to abandon me at the altar for weeks. They didn't just know, they actively helped him plan the entire affair. Isabella overheard Helen talking about the idea with the venue planner 3 weeks before the wedding. Helen inquired about their cancellation policy and whether they might receive a partial refund if the wedding was called off at the last minute. The coordinator noticed something weird and told it to Isabella, but they assumed it was just an anxious mother-in-law being meticulous. Helen and Henry had planned this for more than a month. They continued to encourage me to spend more on deposits that they knew would be lost. Helen even persuaded me to enhance the floral arrangements 2 days before the wedding, knowing full well that her son would not attend. She assisted me in selecting additional decorations and even suggested that I purchase a more expensive wedding gown, all while being aware of their plans. The more I study, the worse I feel. They sat there at family meals, assisted with wedding preparations, and claimed to be enthused about our future together, all the while preparing to embarrass me in front of everyone I know. I visited with George's lawyer again yesterday, and he revealed even more frightening details concerning Henry. This was not his first experience doing something like this. The lawyer provided me documentation of Henry's previous engagements to 2 other women. Both engagements ended in identical ways, with Henry leaving for someone he believed would be more advantageous to his future. The first was Olivia, his college sweetheart. They were engaged during their senior year until Henry met a tech executive's daughter at a career fair. He ended their engagement by email and began dating the executive's daughter a week later. That romance ended when he found she was not as close to her father as he had imagined. The second person was Sophia, who worked at his first job. They were engaged for 6 months until Henry learned that her family's business was faltering. He left her for a woman whose father served on the board of a major firm. That romance also failed when the woman's father expressed his disapproval of Henry. George had been gathering this material for several months. He engaged a private investigator who discovered Henry's practice of exploiting women for social and financial benefit. This research is what prompted George to change his will. The lawyer showed me images, emails, and text messages proving Henry had been plotting to leave me since he met Meghan at the tennis club. But today provided the biggest surprise. Meghan arrived at my apartment crying. She discovered messages on Henry's phone while he was showering. The communications revealed that Henry was already chasing Isabella, her wealthy cousin who is destined to inherit her family's multi-million-dollar technology company. Isabella evidently visits from California every summer, and Henry had planned to meet her on her next visit. Meghan was devastated. She showed me all of the texts, including talks between Henry and Helen that criticized Meghan and myself. They referred to us as stepping stones along Henry's route to achievement. Helen even recommended specific strategies for Henry to acquire Isabella's trust, such as using his friendship with Meghan. The communications also revealed that Helen had suggested Henry join the tennis club where Meghan played, knowing they'd meet there. She had planned the entire event, from fostering their friendship to arranging early morning practice sessions where they could meet without my knowledge. Since Megan left Henry, Helen has been phoning me nonstop. She's probably hoping to persuade me to accept Henry back after his plan with Megan fell through. Every time she called, I let it go to voicemail. Her texts have shifted from nasty to desperate, imploring me to speak with her. She has no idea about the will, nor does she know that I know about their role in destroying my wedding day. The lawyer recommended that I keep my fortune a secret for the time being. There are still some legal steps to go through, and he believes it is best if Henry and Helen are unaware of the will until it is finalized. He's scared they'll try to contest it if they find out too soon. Megan and I talked for hours today. She profusely apologized for her role in everything, claiming she had no knowledge of Henry's background or plans to pursue her cousin. She believed he had fallen in love with her and abandoned me because of his sentiments. Finding those notes made her realize she was merely a piece in his game. I am still processing all of this information. Every day seems to reveal something new about the folks I thought I knew and trusted. According to the lawyer, we should have all of the inheritance documentation in order within a few weeks. Until then, I'm simply trying to keep my head above water while resisting the impulse to reveal everything I know about Henry and his mother. This week, everything detonated in the worst conceivable way. Henry's parents learned about the inheritance predicament during a meeting with their bank. They were attempting to obtain another loan, using the family business as collateral for further house upgrades. The bank notified them that they no longer possessed any rights to the company or its assets. Helen appears to have had a total collapse right in the bank. Helen arrived at my workplace screaming. She got past security by claiming to be my mother-in-law and started causing a commotion in the middle of the workplace. She raged at me for manipulating George and stealing their family legacy. My coworkers had to summon security to remove her, but not before she informed everyone that Henry had abandoned me at the altar. I had been keeping it quiet at work, telling everyone that the wedding had been postponed. After Helen's outburst, Henry began phoning and messaging nonstop. His messages alternated between begging pardon and accusing me of wrecking his family. He stated he made a tremendous mistake by leaving me and that he still loved me. According to him, Megan meant nothing, and he only left because he was afraid of commitment. This dramatic change of heart occurred shortly after Megan moved out, and his efforts to contact her cousin Isabella had failed terribly. Megan informed me that Isabella had laughed when Henry attempted to ask her out. She had already learned everything about him from Megan and alerted their entire extended family about his actions. Henry is now unable to access the family business that he was so interested in. George finally broke his silence this week. He organized a family meeting at his place, inviting Megan's parents, who had been close family friends for years. George revealed everything, including the private investigator's findings, Henry's pattern with his ex-fiancés, and Helen's role in allowing his behavior. He explained why he had modified his will, providing everyone the information he had obtained about Henry and Helen's scheme. Helen burst into tears when George told her that their home will be foreclosed in a matter of weeks. They had taken out numerous loans, banking on Henry's fortune to pay them off. They were now drowning in debt, unable to make their payments. Their flawless plan had gone totally wrong. Henry attempted to explain himself, claiming that he was under pressure from his mother to find someone affluent. George pulled out printed copies of Henry's messages to Helen, revealing that he had boasted about influencing both Megan and myself. There were communications discussing how he intended to exploit Megan's family ties to meet Isabella and how he had estimated how much he might profit from each relationship. The most alarming discovery was that Helen had produced thorough spreadsheets comparing the possible financial benefits of Henry being with me, Megan, and Isabella. She had kept track of everything, including our family income and possible business contacts. Megan's father was upset when he discovered this, especially since Helen was one of his wife's closest friends. Henry's parents had been pleading with me for forgiveness since the bank began the foreclosure process. Helen sends lengthy emails describing how she was simply trying to be a good mother and got carried away with wanting the best for her baby. She promised a public apology and even proposed revealing everything to my parents. Henry took a different strategy. He came up at my place last night with his grandmother's ring, which I had returned following the botched wedding. He urged that we get back together and solve things. He suggested we operate the family business jointly and help his parents keep their home. He appeared to have entirely forgotten that he had humiliated me and plotted everything with his mother. I did not let him in. I spoke with him through the door and warned him to leave before I called the police. He became enraged, accusing me of being cruel and heartless, of ripping his family apart over a single mistake, one that he and his mother had planned months in advance. It had cost my family thousands of dollars in wedding deposits, while also humiliating me in front of everyone I knew. George called me thereafter to apologize for Henry's appearance. He stated that he is working with his lawyer to obtain a restraining order against both Henry and Helen to protect me. Megan's father is also assisting, using his contacts to ensure Henry cannot find another job in the IT business in our area. It's a tiny consolation to know that there are still nice people in this mess. After months of legal back and forth, the inheritance has finally been settled. I used a portion of it to launch a profitable branch of the family firm focused on sustainable technology solutions, which George had always wanted to pursue, but Helen and Henry had resisted. George has been a great mentor throughout this process, teaching me everything I need to know about the business and connecting me to all of his industry contacts. Henry attempted to dispute the will in court, saying that I misled his father when he was mentally unwell. That backfired dramatically when all of his previous actions were used as proof. The private investigator George hired testified about Henry's pattern with his ex-fiancées, and Olivia and Sophia stepped forward to tell their stories. The judge not only dismissed Henry's claim, but also ordered him to pay all legal costs. Henry's parents had to leave their family home last month. They now reside in a small rental flat on the outskirts of the city. Helen still attempts to reach out on occasion, usually after drinking too much. Her messages alternate between asking pardon and accusing me for wrecking their life. I've blocked her phone number, but she keeps using new email addresses to reach me. Henry struck rock bottom when Megan's father exposed his actions to the whole IT world. He had to take an entry-level customer service position at a tiny company outside of town. Last I heard, he was still living with a roommate and working for Uber on weekends to make ends meet. He attempted to apologize to Megan's family in the hopes of re-establishing those links, but they refused to speak with him. The karma did not end there. Isabella, Megan's cousin whom Henry attempted to pursue, ended up dating and just became engaged to Megan's brother, Ethan. They now operate the IT firm that Henry was so interested in, and it is more prosperous than before. Megan has become a good friend. We meet for coffee on a regular basis and occasionally joke at how we both manage to avoid Henry's manipulation. George has been my staunchest supporter throughout this entire process. He believes that watching me succeed with the company has helped him deal with his disappointment in Henry. We've grown the business by 40% in just 6 months, and our new sustainable tech segment is attracting the attention of major investors. George recently told me that revising his will was the best decision he'd ever made. I've utilized a portion of my fortune to establish a foundation that assists those who have been financially harmed by broken engagements. We reimburse lost wedding deposits and provide legal assistance when needed. Olivia and Sophia now work with the foundation, sharing their story to help others recognize the warning signs we all overlooked with Henry. Following Henry's unsuccessful challenge to the will, the court issued an order prohibiting him from having any involvement in the family firm or charity indefinitely. He tried to argue that this was unfair, but given the evidence of his previous actions, the judge was unimpressed. My personal life is currently better than it would have been if I had married Henry. I've started dating again, but I'm taking things cautiously. My parents are proud of how I've handled everything, and watching the company prosper under my leadership has helped them move over their resentment over the wedding tragedy. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Henry had been honest from the start. But then I recall what George told me. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually blessings in disguise. He was correct. Losing Henry inspired me to discover my own strength, pursue a great career, and create something significant to benefit others. That is worth more than any wedding could have been. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.